Imagine having everything you ever dreamed of, fame, fortune, and a legacy destined to endure for centuries, and yet feeling completely and profoundly empty inside. Leo Tolstoy had achieved the pinnacle of worldly success. His novels, War and Peace, and Anna Karenina, were celebrated as literary masterpieces across the globe. His name was etched into the annals of literary history, and his wealth exceeded what most could ever imagine. Still, he found himself staring into the void, day after day. Each morning he awoke with a crushing weight on his chest. A single, relentless question haunted him. What is the meaning of life, if all things eventually end in death? This question wasn't just an idle musing. It consumed him. It became a dark presence that threatened to unravel his very being. No success, no admiration, no love could silence it. Paradoxically, the more he accomplished, the more the emptiness expanded. He had everything, yet it felt like he had nothing at all. Tolstoy once described his condition as being akin to a man running from a terrifying beast through a dense forest, death constantly on his heels. Clinging to a fragile branch over an abyss, he knew he couldn't hold on forever. So what was the point? Success, wealth, and intellect had all failed him. If everything he strived for was destined to disappear, what truly mattered? This wasn't just Tolstoy's dilemma. It's the question that haunts anyone who has ever achieved their goals and still felt unfulfilled. He turned to philosophy, science, and reason, desperate for clarity. He read Schopenhauer, Kant, and the existential thinkers of his time, hoping their ideas might offer comfort. But the more he explored, the deeper his despair. Science, cold and mechanical, stripped life of meaning. It reduced existence to random chance in an indifferent universe. Philosophy dissected life, but offered little in the way of emotional solace. Rational thought only sharpened the pain. If death was the one certainty, then was life just a cosmic joke? To Tolstoy, it appeared that there were only two possible paths: accept that life is meaningless and sink into despair, or end his own life to escape its cruel absurdity. And he came dangerously close to choosing the latter. He wrote of hiding ropes and avoiding firearms, fearing he might act on the impulse to end his suffering. This wasn't abstract or artistic despair. It was real. It consumed him. But somewhere deep within, something resisted. A small voice inside urged him to keep searching, to believe that meaning wasn't just an illusion. So he shifted his focus. Instead of seeking answers from the intellectual elite, he looked to those often overlooked. He began observing the lives of common people, farmers, laborers, peasants. They lived without riches or acclaim, without deep philosophical inquiry. Yet they possessed something he lacked: a quiet peace. Despite their hardships, they didn't seem burdened by the question of meaning. They didn't theorize about life's purpose. They simply lived as though it mattered. Tolstoy was struck by this. These people found purpose not in achievements, but in relationships, in routines, in service to others. They worked, suffered, and endured, yet with a serenity that eluded him. What did they understand that he didn't? They weren't chasing certainty like he was. They embraced the unknown. They didn't need an airtight argument for why life mattered. They accepted mystery. They endured suffering. They didn't fear death in the way he did. Their faith, whether in God, tradition, or the rhythm of existence, offered them a peace that philosophy had never given him. Then it dawned on him. He had been searching for meaning through thought, logic, and theory. But meaning, he realized, isn't found through intellect. It's experienced. He had believed that meaning needed to be proven, defended, validated, but the people around him lived meaningful lives without ever demanding philosophical certainty. They simply lived. Meaning, Tolstoy saw, is not discovered like a hidden treasure. It is created through love, connection, presence. It doesn't need to be logical. It needs to be lived. This shift in understanding didn't come suddenly. It unfolded slowly, dismantling everything he once held dear. He saw that true peace doesn't come from external success or intellectual brilliance. It comes from surrender to life, to love, to being. But his transformation wasn't yet complete. If his old measures of success had failed him, what then was truly worth striving for? To answer this, Tolstoy made a radical change. He stripped his life down to the essentials. No more debates, no more theories. He watched how people actually lived, not what they said they believed, but how they moved through the world. And a pattern emerged. Those who found peace weren't focused on themselves. They lived for others. They found meaning in responsibility, not reward. This wasn't about religion, ideology, or dogma. It was about a profound shift from self-centeredness to service. For years, Tolstoy had obsessed over his own meaning, legacy, and impact. But what if meaning arises only when we stop placing ourselves at the center of everything? He saw it in everyday acts: a mother nurturing her child, a farmer growing food for others, a laborer building homes he would never live in. These people weren't searching for meaning. They were living it, in duty, in love, in the quiet work of contributing to something beyond themselves. And with this, Tolstoy confronted his own failure. He had tried to reason his way into fulfillment, to earn worth through greatness. But true meaning was never hidden in books or prestige. It was there, in the lives of the people he once overlooked. So he let go. He released the idea that meaning had to be absolute. He embraced the reality that life isn't something to be solved. It's something to be served. This insight transformed him. He renounced his noble status, abandoned luxury, and chose a life of simplicity and service. He began dressing like a peasant, working with farmers, and giving away much of his wealth. He rejected the very privileges that had defined his earlier life. And for the first time, he felt truly free. But the world around him didn't understand. His family was shocked. His wife, once his closest ally, felt abandoned. His intellectual peers dismissed him as insane. Yet Tolstoy was unfazed. For the first time, he was living his truth. He denounced the aristocracy, criticized the church for its corruption, and condemned the state for exploiting the poor. As a result, he was excommunicated. His works were banned. Former admirers turned their backs. But none of it mattered. Tolstoy was no longer chasing approval. He had found something larger than himself. He devoted his final years to the service of others, preaching nonviolence, humility, and simplicity. And in doing so, he discovered another hidden truth. For years he had feared death. It had haunted him, nearly consumed him. But now he understood that death only terrifies those who live solely for themselves. If you live for ego, death is the ultimate loss. But if you live for something greater, death becomes merely a passage. Tolstoy saw this in the same people who had first awakened him. They had already surrendered their lives to something higher, and in that surrender, they found freedom. So he let go of control. He let go of needing to be validated. He let go of the fear that once ruled him, and in doing so, he found peace. Not in books, not in fame, but in quiet, purposeful living. He spent his final years in the countryside, committed to his new path. And at age 82, he made one last journey. Leaving everything behind, he set off alone, perhaps seeking solitude, perhaps one final moment of clarity. He never made it. He died in a modest train station, far from the grandeur he was once known for. And yet, he died free. His story isn't just about one man's search for purpose, it's about all of us. We chase success, approval, and meaning, thinking they will fulfill us. But meaning isn't found. It's lived, in love, in service, in the quiet moments we often overlook. Tolstoy's journey reminds us, the purpose of life isn't to prove ourselves. It's to give ourselves away to something greater. When we do that, when we live with purpose instead of ego, we no longer fear death, because we know we truly lived. If this story spoke to you, don't let it end here. Subscribe, leave a comment, and join the conversation. Let's keep exploring the truths that make life meaningful. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and most of all, keep living. If this message stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone else might be walking the same silent path, waiting for a sign that they're not alone. Stay grounded, stay thoughtful, stay awake. For more deep dives into philosophy, the human experience, and timeless truths, subscribe and turn on the bell. Wander the void with wonder, question deeply, think freely. Until next time, embrace the silence and let it speak.